Thank you, Samys. My name is Dave Black. I'll be going to be talking about sports here and some different, aspects of sport that I think will be helpful to people, especially if you're trying to sort of make your way into a career into this sort of thing, or at least make some sales along the way to help pay for the gear you buy and that sort of thing. I am one of Nikon's ambassadors. So I take a bow there, a little bow on the TV. And I do have a website. It's daveblackphotography.com. It's a good place to go on here. And so I have Instagram as well, which is just @DaveBlackPhoto. The website looks like this, and usually websites are full of a lot of, shameless propaganda for ourselves, as photographers. But I'm going to draw your attention to this page because you probably go, what gear does he use? What are those lights he's talking about? What is he talking? Well, there's Dave's gear. All you got to do is go to my website, go to Dave's gear page. All that is listed there. There are a lot of links to some of the equipment that I use and accessories that I use. It's not just sports equipment, it's lighting as well, and it's light painting. All that kind of gear is in there. The other thing you might want to look at, it says 2020 here, but actually it'd be the 2021 workshops calendar, and those are other seminars and online things, plus live workshops. All that is actually being fed onto that page in the next week. So we've got a few things up now, but more of them are kind of loading in. So anyway, go there if you're interested in learning other things, including, I think I come back to Samy's in May.
May 5th, you've got the light painting event.
So right, that one will be in there as well. So anyway, here we go. We're gonna keep going here. Instagram looks like this. And a lot of Instagram people just put up their pictures, what they shot that day, what they had for lunch. And I don't do that. I just put up pictures that I've actually photographed at events and projects I've been working on. And I try to teach something on my Instagram. So predominantly the posts I'll put up will explain how the picture was made, what the backstory is on it, what kind of, it usually leads off with the camera, lens, ISO, white balance, shutter speed, f-stop, what kind of lighting might have been used. All that usually comes right up front, and then it explains how I applied it to make that picture and why I was trying to make it that way. So it's a great source of learning as well. And at least 37,000 people seem to think so, and they come there. So anyway, come join me on Instagram. And if you were with me this morning at 9 a.m. Colorado time, the first Monday of each month is an AMA, an Ask Me Anything Monday, the first Monday of each month, and that's with me and my daughter, Haley, who is also a photographer, and we have a good time. That is on my Instagram @DaveBlackPhoto, and we archive all of them. They go live on the Monday morning, first Monday of each month, but then they are archived after that, so you can come back and look at them anytime, which means there's probably about 10 shows on there right now. So you can come to those, that's free, and you can learn stuff there because we answer everything, including when was the next time I was going to get a haircut? It's Wednesday at 10 o'clock. Okay, there we go. Well, I wouldn't be here at all if it wasn't for Samys, right? Samys Photo School. Thank you so much for having me here. And SanDisk and Nikon kind of teaming up on this. And thank you so much for their sponsorship. It's always great to come teach people how to make pictures. 40 years ago, if somebody had told me, you're going to be a sports photographer someday, and I would have gone, you are out of your mind. I was a graphics design major leaving college, and I was coaching, once I got out, and all of a sudden an opportunity came along. I was always kind of taking some pictures. I had a black and white class my senior year in college, and I kept doing it a little bit. I'd be photographing the athletes I was coaching, and next thing I know, sports started entering into my mind and choosing sports and so forth. And I thought, well, the natural thing to do is to choose gymnastics because that was the sport I was coaching. And I started taking pictures, and it eventually got a call from the US team, and they said, would you walk away from coaching because we need to hire a full-time photographer? And that was in 1980. So I started with one sport. And my recommendation, and that's how this presentation is going to go. I'm going to make a lot of recommendations on how my career sort of transpired, which I think if you would apply some of these things to your photography, to your sports photography, or any of the kind of photography you're in, a lot of these things will will apply to whether you're doing weddings or landscapes or wildlife or other things. But you got to start with one thing. If you're doing wildlife, start with one animal and get really good at photographing that one animal. In my case, starting with one sport, it was gymnastics. This is my first color slide transparency from college. This is Diane Grayson. She was on the Pan American team, and I was a gymnast in college. And we had a ladies gymnastics team there. And so I thought, man, I'm going to go photograph her and see how that works out. And because I knew nothing really about photography, but I knew a lot about gymnastics, it was actually pretty easy for me to do. And my timing was already good. There's no motor drive here. I borrowed the instructor, my photo instructor's Nikon F camera, and click, trying to make a picture there. And surprisingly enough, it actually stopped most of the action. And this is kind of fun, I thought. And when I got that call that said, would you leave this, coaching and come work? It was like, wow, you talk about like the heavens opened up and the God rays came down on me. And it was like, take the job. And I took the job. And the next thing you know, I was photographing the U.S. team training, competing in various events, their signature skills and special, tricks in their routines that they would do that made them so great. All the details of the sport. And by the time that was 1980, 81 and 82, and then the Olympics in Los Angeles, kind of rolled around, and Mary Lou Retton did a full twisting Sukahara over the vaulting horse, scored a perfect 10. She wins the gold medal in the all-around, the ladies all-around, and my entire life changed. All of a sudden, instead of just doing gymnastics and a couple other, things, because the Olympic Committee, I was living in Colorado Springs, the Olympic Committee had moved there, and they had me doing things for them as well. And things just sort of kept coming. But when Mary Lou won a gold medal, and I had, of course, lots of pictures. She was a marquee athlete. So for 3 years, I'd been accumulating pictures of her for the gymnastics team, for their home office, and I retained ownership, at least part, the gymnastics team owned rights, but I also owned rights. And all of a sudden, I became a very popular guy with magazines and newspapers and books and everything. And I hear from Mary Lou Retton about once a year. And it's like, hey, those pictures you gave me way long ago, can I still use those? I'm doing a new book. I go, they're yours. You use them for whatever you want. My gosh, what you did for me, it's the least I can do for you. And that whole trend with that one sport continues today. This is Koki Uchimura. If you go to Japan, just mention the name Uchimura and people will back up and they'll go, wow, Uchimura. Because he is the greatest gymnast of all time. He is a GOAT, so to speak. He is the greatest of all time. More Olympic and world medals than any other male gymnast or female gymnast. That guy can do some tricks. And things changed though along the way. It went from shooting all these competitions for, like 27, 28 years. And then I started doing more and more lighting and started incorporating that lighting into doing advertising work. And that was a whole different scenario as well. And it paid a lot better than editorial work. So I'm now kind of on this sort of stream. This is one of the more recent pictures I made. This is from, I think, a year ago. And same sport, but here I am still with that one sport, still going after it. Well, to say the least, if you know your sport or if you know your subject, you are more likely to get great pictures than if you don't, than if you're just guessing or it's the first time you've ever seen skateboarding. The chances are you're going to be trying to stumble over yourself trying to figure out how to get good pictures of this thing, and then all of a sudden the event's over. And so when you know your sport, you pick that sport and you start working at it. Repetition is the key to intuitive anticipation. You've probably heard it said, if you want to get great sports photography, you have to anticipate the action. Yeah, we got to anticipate the action. Which way's the quarterback going to go? Which way's the running back going to run? Which direction does Michael Phelps breathe, when he does his swimming? And you know these things and you start anticipating the action. My suggestion is yes, 10 frames a second or 15 frames a second or 100 frames a second is a great advantage. But knowing what's coming, what's preceding things, anticipating that action will give you perfect timing. And that still pays off more. Perfect timing still pays off better than just letting 15 frames run and hope for the best. Some people would call that spray and pray type of shooting in sports. So it kind of works, but I like better timing, perfect timing. And when you have perfect timing, then every sport you approach, you make that sport your sport again. So it wasn't just gymnastics. All of a sudden, the Olympics in '84 opened up all these doors to me. I started doing way more stuff for the U.S. Olympic Committee and all the different NGBs, that's National Governing Body, and that'll become very important to you in about 15 more minutes. And I'm going to give you kind of a lead on how to maybe get work, how to get hired to do things. So hang with me through this thing. But perfect timing. And all of a sudden, you want to try and make every sport your sport so that you know a lot about it. You want to be the go-to person, whether it's diving or track and field or basketball. This is Magic Johnson from the Dream Team in 1992. So great things happen at the Olympics, but great things happen at every sporting event, whether it's age group, high school, college, university, NCAA, professional, or Olympic. Notice how I put the Olympians kind of at the end of the line. They're like above the professionals. There's something about working with Olympians that is so great. Great working with professionals as well, but they're a lot more untouchable. They're harder to get a hold of. The Olympians, they want the publicity. They want it. I think everybody knows this guy, Michael Phelps, right? I don't know how many medals he's got. Was it 28? Something like that. It's amazing. Absolutely. I don't know if we'll ever see anybody like him. I've had the pleasure to photograph him several times and at 3 different Olympic Games. It's phenomenal. It's unbelievable to watch, unbelievable to photograph. And he's a great guy to boot. Well, I've got a couple of things that I think will help. If you can remember these things, once you, of course, know your subject and you know your sport. Follow the action, fill the frame, and capture the moment. And I learned in those sort of early years, going to all the different events for gymnastics, college events, other events for other Olympic sports, then doing World Cup and World Championships and world events, and then the Olympics and so forth. I learned that if I could follow the action, just continue to follow the action and fill the frame with that action, with those athletes, and then capture the moment. If I got those things, if I just concentrated on those things early on in my career, I thought I was making good pictures at just about every sport I was going to, and it improved the more I did that. Repetition is the key to intuitive, anticipation, right? It works with every sport. But doing all the summer sports, gymnastics, swimming, diving, track and field, boxing, equestrian, table tennis. You'd be surprised how much money I've made on table tennis. Okay. I'm serious about it, man. Who else wants to shoot it? But if you shoot it and you make good pictures, someone needs it when it comes around every Olympic year, every 4th year for the summer game. All of a sudden, people need those things. But everything starts overlapping. Wow, if I want to do tennis, the tennis is, I can't do the gymnastics because they're both summer sports. And then I can't do baseball either. And I've started doing some Major League Baseball. What do I do? So you have to find a second season. That's your next step now. You're going to find a second season. The obvious thing to do is the winter sports tend to be separated from all the summer sports. So here's this open territory, a plentiful land, so to speak, of sports, and they're in a whole different realm. And you might be thinking, I live in Florida. I don't want to get cold. Well, the news is that not very many photographers do want to get cold, but if you can make yourself go out into the cold and get pictures, you'll find that there aren't very many other people doing it, which makes the likelihood of making inroads into the industry and making sales and getting hired far greater. Everybody wants to do football, and I'm not trying to discourage anybody from doing football. Go right after it. But it's very difficult to survive if you're trying to make it an actual career on one sport. Very, very difficult. I mean, teams only hire 1, maybe 2 team photographers that actually get paid. And even they have to do something in the off season of that team, of that sport. So the winter games and moving into the winter sports, I thought, well, I live in Colorado. That should be a natural for me. We get snow here. Come on, let's do it. And I started with something that I thought would be familiar. I basically approached the U.S. ski team, and they were in 1985. They had announced that they'd be doing freestyle skiing in the 1988 Olympic Games. So the next games would be 1988. That'd be winter. And freestyle skiing, especially the aerials competition, was just like doing gymnastics, except they were on skis. And in fact, most of the coaches at that time in this sport at the world level were all former gymnasts who could flip and twist, except they do it with skis on. And when I was coaching gymnastics way back when, before I was a photographer, I actually had trampoline classes where guys would come in and gals would come in, put their skis on, get them on the trampoline, put them in the spotting rig, and I'd be pulling on the rope, and they'd be learning double backs and double twists and all that kind of stuff. So this was like, why not start here? Very familiar territory. I already knew a lot about that sport simply because I knew gymnastics, my number 1 sport. So off I went, and nobody else wanted to do it. Oh no, skiing is like the downhill, the super G. That's what skiing really is. Really? Well, I'm happy to do the freestyle. In fact, Dave, could you do ski jumping? Because they don't want to do that either. They only want to do the downhill and they want to do the super G. And I said, yeah, give me the ski jumping. And it started looking, it's fascinating to me. These guys go like 80 miles an hour flying through the air. And you look for all kinds of different positions, different places to photograph from. This is from the 88 games. And it was very warm in Calgary that year. There was no snow where the actual venue was. So we had these like sort of brown hills in the background. And I said, well, what if I got as high as possible and looked down on the audience, all the fans down there? And these guys were jumping out over the top, and there they were with a zillion fans down below. And I thought, oh, that looked pretty cool. And the editors at Newsweek thought that looked cool too. That's what I've done most of my Olympics for. I've done 12 Olympics total, 6 summer, 6 winter. Most of those were for Newsweek, either the Olympic Committee for the first couple, and then Newsweek after that. But eventually I said, give me a shot at the downhill, and I'll bet I can do pretty good. And I did all right on that one. I could ski, so you could ski into position back then. You actually got to ski down the downhill course. Ooh, what a perk of the job that was. And then started making pictures, started making inroads there. And then all kinds of doors opened up. Snowboarding came in, bobsled. I call it suicide luge, but it's actually called the skeleton. This is Jim Shea from the 2002 Winter Games in Salt Lake City, won the gold medal there. All these doors started opening up. There weren't that many people that did that. If you want to kind of get inroads as a career into this, you may not be interested in skeleton, but I'll do it a few times a year. And that's more than most people will do. And it is fun to shoot. It is fascinating to shoot. It is fast. Make great pictures. And you're the go-to person then. That's what you like. That's called, what is that called? It's like there's not much competition going against me.
Scarcity.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's always great champions that come out of this. Is Apollo Ono. Everybody get their beard on, get their little soul spot there. At the finals in Italy, this is in 2006, like everybody in the arena had black tape right there. Everybody looked like Apollo. Everybody wanted Apollo to win something, right? And it's unusual to get the champion, the gold and the silver and the bronze. So Canada and the red won the silver. Korea was in the bronze place, but you get all three, because I actually knew the sport by that time. The more I know about my sport, the more I shoot it, the more likelihood is I can predict how the action is going. But I was still searching for the second season, and what's the second sport? What's it going to be? And it came in the sort of a wild place, came in figure skating. And to be more specific, probably the ladies' side of the sport, although I shot all the disciplines and did well. You may be surprised to find out that the sport that I have made the most income in is figure skating, not football, not gymnastics. not Major League Baseball, something like figure skating, believe it or not, because very few people could photograph it well. And once you get embedded into the sport, then all things start happening. And the sport just happened to move into a position where two young ladies had a bit of difficulty in 1994 before the Olympic Games. And that is Nancy Kerrigan on the left and Tanya Harding on the right. And rumor had it that Tanya Harding's husband had hired somebody, or there was some involvement where someone attacked Nancy Kerrigan during the Olympic trials during one of the workout practice sessions. And so the first practice in Norway, in Lillehammer, where the two met on the ice, this is as close as they got. There are a lot of pictures of them skating around, doing things, you know, Nancy jumping, Tara looking, and so forth. But this is actually about 5 feet apart. It was just the wildest thing. But it got better than that. Every picture tells a story. And during those Olympics, Nancy Kerrigan took a silver, and Oksana Bayul from Ukraine won the gold, and Chen Lu from China won bronze. And this sort of says it all. The surprise and the delight of the Ukraine athlete, Oksana Bayul, and Nancy Kerrigan with that reaction at the announcement. You got to be there for the action, but you have to be there for the story that unfolds. That's called the moment. Capture, follow the action, fill the frame, capture the moment. In this case, I used a 600 with a 1.4 converter, a Nikon 600 f4. Used the 1.4 converter, which made about 800, and Joel could probably correct me, 840 millimeters. And this is on film, of course, in 1994 to make it full frame, no crop.
Dave, typically when you capture a moment like that, how long of a time do you have to find it? Like, for this example, how long was Oksana excited and Nancy rolling her eyes? Like, did you have more than 1 second to capture this? You happen to be in the right place at the right time? Or well, it seems you've indicated that you know what the right place and the right time is ahead of time, but.
Right, you're constantly following the athletes. You're constantly, 600, 400, 70 to 200, and whatever's going on, they're picking up the stuffed animals off the ice. It's like, okay, I'll go to a 300 for that. So I see more action. 600 with a converter, put the converter on. You're constantly moving, looking for everything that's going on. This is a 1 second moment. It's just, you think of her as going, oh, why did she win and I didn't, or whatever she's thinking. But really it was like this. That's all it was. And it was like click, click. It was like 2 seconds, like click, click, and that was it. And yeah, that was a very good question. And it's just, you're constantly looking. Not looking at the back of the camera like a lot of us do today, and I'm guilty as well as everybody. We're always looking at the back because we can do that. Oh, let's see how that did. How did I do on that thing? But really, you want to continue to keep your eyes looking through the camera and taking pictures, making pictures all the time if you're in the sports industry. That's really how it works. Great question, though. Great question. Well, once you sort of determine these sports that you like, that you're doing, you pick your one sport, then you kind of broaden out and do other things that sort of go along in that same season. Then you go to a second season and you kind of fish through there. What do I like? What am I good at? What do I adapt to quickly? Then you go, now you're going to try and connect with a marquee athlete. And in figure skating, the marquee athlete for me was Michelle Kwan. Depending on your age, you may or may not remember who Michelle Kwan was. But this is her at age 11. It's one of the fun things about photographing Olympic athletes. Some of them start extremely young, and there's feeder programs before they get to that elite level. And here she was actually at the national championships. She had forged her coach's signature on the entry form to move up to the senior division rather than a junior national championship. She decided to go all the way, and her coach, Frank Carroll, is encouraging her with that bold move to kind of apply for the senior division rather than the juniors. And I'm not sure what he said, but I'm sure it was something like, you know, well, you've gotten yourself into this, now you better perform, which is actually what he said at that time. So this is Michelle at age 11. It's the first time I ever saw her, but I knew she was going to be a good one. And I had gotten embedded into figure skating and was doing a lot of it, and a lot of the shows and you know, television shows that they had on figure skating. Figure skating used to be about the same popularity as Dancing with the Stars has been over the last 10 years. It's incredibly popular, always on TV. And because I was sort of embedded in the sport, I just had a little more access than everybody. And so I left my assigned seat and I came over to sort of where the athletes enter and get on the ice and get off the ice. And I asked the security people who I knew, right? And I said, can I slip in here and just get one picture of this little girl that's coming up right now? And I call her a girl at this point. She's only 11 years old. And I came in, I think I used a 105-14 to make this picture. And boom, took a couple frames while he's giving her the little talking to here. And then I left. I didn't stay for anybody else. I didn't go beyond what I'd requested. Try to keep that honesty there, because then you can usually come back another day and do it again. So there I was, only a few feet away, made the picture.
So Dave, when you take a photo like that, we sort of have a question. What percentage of your photos are keepers versus deletes? Like when you capture a photo like this, how many have you taken in that one moment and to get the one perfect one?
Well, I will say this, when you're shooting film, which this was actually on film.
That was my follow-up, was what's the difference between film, you know, how has that changed between film and digital?
Your percentage of keepers is a lot higher, I think, on film because you're not shooting as much film. You know, I'd go to a football game and I would shoot 25 rolls of film. How many of them are keepers? You know, Sports Illustrated would probably publish anywhere between 1 to maybe 7. That doesn't mean there weren't others that were good. It just means those players didn't do something significant at that thing. I think digital has made us move along a lot quicker. Of course, most cameras went from 5 frames a second, you know, like in the 80s, to 7 frames a second, and now we're up to, you know, 10 frames, 13 frames, 15 frames a second. So there is that a lot more, what I wouldn't call it waste, because you do want to keep shooting and keep connected to the action going on all the time. But it is a much lower percent now, but I don't care. I don't think any editor cares that much. Simon Brody with Sports Illustrated, he shoots less than any sports photographer I have ever met on the job. He's a fantastic photographer for them. And he'd walk away from the same football game and he'd have like 4 rolls of film. And I'm thinking, oh, man, how can he do it? But that's because he was Simon. Anyway, great question. And yeah, don't be bashful. Shooting a lot of frames, that's fine. But become very speedy at editing through. Editing meaning selecting those pictures, because you can't send off zillions of pictures to magazines and stuff. You've got to weed it down. So keep that in mind. Well, Michelle went on to be great. I think she won 7 national championships, 3 world titles, and eventually 2 gold medals, 3 gold medals, 3 medals. She never won a gold Olympic medal, but she was so popular. Everybody wanted her. You get access when you start showing up all the time for various people. This is a practice session. I put a remote camera up in the catwalk looking straight overhead. But because I knew her routine, her program so well, I had a very good idea of where to position that camera. Portraits are being made. And that special access, you know, can we get some things of her putting her makeup on before she goes out on the ice and so forth? Oh yeah, it's Dave. He's been with her a long time now. You get to know the parents, you get to know the coach, you get to know the trainer and her publicist, that sort of thing. That access comes. This is actually was a cover shot for Newsweek just before 2002. This is her routine for 2002 in Salt Lake City. Everything was mapped out. There's one of the neat things about figure skating, you know, they do routines, a program, map it out. If you know your sport, and I could have this memorized on about the top 5 women, top 5 men, that sort of thing. It's to your advantage, believe me, because you know where the most difficult skill is.
Dave, do you know how to read that routine document? Because to me, it's just gibberish.
Absolutely. J1 is jump 1. It's a double axel, 2X. And it's right at the judge's box.
Okay.
And the miss that were, jump 2 is a triple flip, jump 3 is a triple Lutz, double toe loop combinations is right of to the right corner. She does a stag leap right in the middle, facing center. Then there's a dance around. The musical note tells me that the music changes. When the music changes, I know I'm going to pick up a 300 millimeter 2.8 because the next thing she's going to do is going to need a 300 instead of a 400. So all that scenes, and then I have like the pattern is great. And guys would come up and the photographers, guys and gals would come up and they'd say, "Can I see your cheat sheet?" Absolutely. And they'd look at it and go, it's not going to help me very much.
Yeah.
It probably wouldn't. But this is what I mean about knowing your sport. I mean, really, if you had the videotape of the Super Bowl and you had it the day before, wouldn't you look at it? Of course you'd look at it. You'd know where every play was. You'd know where every sack of the quarterback was. You'd know where every key touchdown was. It's the same thing. There's a practice session. Go to the practice session. Put your camera down and watch them skate around and just make some notes. You're basically watching a routine. That's the video before the actual competition. Why not? Same thing with gymnastics. Same thing with diving. Any type of performance sport like that gives you that edge. Go to the practice and do it. Well, she didn't win. That's why they come play the games, as you've heard. She went on tour. This is actually her final tour stop. I just thought it was just an interesting picture, the way the lights are coming down. No one else is allowed in during the practice. I was hired by the tour to be on tour with them for a week or two. So why do I show all this Olympic stuff to you? And we're going to get into some other sports here, because this information right here is probably some of the most important of the night. At Team USA, that's the Instagram, the IG handle for the Olympic teams, men and women, summer and winter. If their Olympic trials are going on right now for Tokyo, a lot of them have started. Wrestling started this past week. So go there and start looking at pictures, and you'll see great pictures, action, and awards, and all these kinds of things of Olympic wannabes, the preview of who's going to make the Olympic team. And what your next thing is, you're going to go to the National Governing Body, NGB, National Governing Body. Those are the organizations that run USA figure skating, USA skiing, USA track and field, USA boxing, USA badminton, USA archery. And there's about 70 of these NGBs in alphabetical order, starting with archery. And then go to the website, teamusa.org/media/NGB-communications.com. It's being halfway hidden here. I think it's -contacts. And what will come up is a page that has the list of all the sports, all the Olympic sports, NGB contact person who does all the promotions and public relations. Their contact information is going to be there. And you can just go, you know what? USA Rowing is in Florida. I don't know if it is, but let's say Florida. Well, I live in Florida. I'll just see it. But I live in Tampa. Your headquarters are in Tampa. Is there any events that you're hosting here? I'm a photographer, a sports photographer, etc. You go there, and out of 70 or 80 of these sports and the NGBs, you contact them, tell them how far you're willing to travel. I'm willing to drive 700 miles personally. That'd be like to Kansas City or Dallas for me, or Jackson Hole, Wyoming, Utah, Salt Lake City. I'm willing to make that drive. I'm willing to travel that far. And you tell them what that range is for you. And then you can go ahead and content, say, this is what I do. Here's some of my portfolio. Would love to come photograph one of your events, even if it's a junior event or something like that. Get your foot in the door. And I'll bet you, and I have done this before for the last 3 years, and people have gotten work with some of these NGBs where they picked up 2 or 3 of the NGBs where they started using them. It's worth a try if you want to photograph sports. It's not always about football, baseball, basketball, right? Hockey. There are a lot of other things out there, and you might surprise yourself on what might become interesting to you, especially if somebody's paying you to photograph it. Follow the action, fill the frame, capture the moment. I don't care if you're doing high school, all that applies. Everything I'm talking about applies. High school, college, pros, it's all the same. You just got to keep working at it and keep kind of trying to raise the bar on yourself. Then a lot of doors will start opening up to you in other sports you may have never thought about. I'm not interested in golf. I'd never shot golf before, not until the editor at Golf Digest saw me do a presentation, much the way I'm doing now, and I showed a documentary I did on horse racing, and he asked if I could do that at the Masters, and that's how I started working for Golf Digest. I was teaching at a workshop. I gave a presentation on horse racing and a whole documentary, like how to do a document, everything. I covered everything, right? Training sessions, ladies with their hats on, the winners, the remote cameras, you name it, everything. And he came up immediately after that and said, are you available on, we'd like to hire you for the Masters. And I did 6 years of shooting golf events for them, majors. It was great. During the Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods era. It was very exciting, very exciting. Horse racing, my favorite sport. So look for these opportunities. Look for sports outside where your interests are. Take on anything anybody will hire for, because you never know where that's going to lead. All those press people for the NGBs that you're going to get yourself hired by, they only last about 4 years in that sport. Then they move on to another sport. They go from USA Wrestling to like USA Track and Field. They try and raise the bar on themselves to go to a more higher profile sport. And their likelihood is, if you're doing a good job for them at wrestling and they move on to track and field, they'll take you with them. Let's make sure Karen comes with us here. Let's make sure Kyle, he did a great job for us there at all our diving championships the last 2 years. Now I'm at USA Gymnastics. I'm going to bring him into gymnastics because diving and gymnastics are kind of related. You never know where it's going to lead. You never know. Wow. You never know where you could end up, right? So how do you get that credential? I don't know. I do know. I know ways. The photo credential is like access is so important. If you're shooting like age group and young kids and stuff, high school athletics, it's start with the high school athletes. Go to the high school, talk to the athletic director or head coach. That's your gateway into shooting athletics there. When you go in, you've got to be ready to bleed the color of that high school, for these people. And, I went to this high school. I've been following the athletics here for a long time, but I'm just shooting from the stands. I think I could make a lot of great pictures of the kids for the school and for the parents and so forth. Don't go in and say, I'd like to photograph the game so I can improve my portfolio. Because then you're doing something for yourself. You want to convince them, I can help you. I can help you and your school get better pictures of your athletes and your events. And that will widen your whole scope of sports gets wide when you go to the high school, because there's all kinds of things. There's all kinds of sports there. College, you're going to talk to the Sports Information Department, the SID, Sports Information Department. That's where they want you to shoot the game and so forth. But they only take on like a couple of people. And the likelihood is they maybe have people that have been regularly shooting for the SID for a long time. Go to the student government or school sponsors. They need all kinds of pictures as well. Student government, they want pictures to put in the brochures and the booklets and pamphlets for the university. And they need more than just sports. They need like beautiful fall colors on campus with some students sitting on a bench, one with a bicycle, and the others are all talking like, hey, we just got here to school. Isn't it exciting being at the University of Texas? And school sponsors are like, just look at the boards on any university ice rink. You got car dealerships and Wendy's and the local bookstore and you name it, everybody's. Those people need pictures too that have hockey players skating by, the big Wendy's or Arby's restaurants or something, or Chevy dealership. They pay money. If you don't think a Chevy dealership pays some money, they do. They do. So that's for college and university. College and pros, you always then you can start approaching the wire service. That would be Getty, USA Today, Associated Press. And lots of times they just hire people locally or they want to go to cover a lot of events within 100 miles or so. Just start looking online, find out who to contact at these places like Associated Press, who is the local Associated Press editors and program people there. Contact them. Newspapers, magazines, you usually contact the photo editor directly at those. Have a portfolio ready. Be professional about it. And when I mean professional, have a good website that has only your best pictures on there. Instagram, don't show them the roast beef sandwich you just ate yesterday. Show them only your best sports action pictures, awards from those events, the crowd, the stadium, night game, day game, cheerleaders, the bands, that you could do like a coffee table book on any sport. That's what newspapers, magazines, college pros, the wire services, they need everything. They need everything. These are just, believe me, if you follow some of these places, you'll have to do due diligence there, to kind of get into this, but that's how you get into these places. I want you to find a laboratory. It's a high school or college that allows you to shoot their sports events. And you might not get paid for it. You're not going to ask for any money. What? Dave, really? Why, I can't go work for free. This equipment costs money, I'm telling you right now, you want a place where you're not beholden to anybody. All you want is access, because access and freedom to photograph wherever you want and whoever you want is far more valuable than money to you. You want to use this school as a laboratory to just learn, use a new lens, use a new camera, figure out how lighting works, use your speed lights or something, or maybe you got Pro Photos or Ellenchroms or something. Use these things and start, you have this place to experiment with and learn your craft. Then you have a better portfolio. Then you can go to the wire services and the colleges, and then you can do these things. It's very, very valuable. But if you march in and say, here's what I'm going to charge, they say, this is what are you going to charge us? I was at the U.S. Air Force Academy, and I wanted to learn a lot more about remote cameras and lighting. I wanted to light arenas, and because I knew light was this tremendous influence. And I went to the U.S. Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, not really a high-profile power NCAA, always in the Final Four place, right? Let's face it, if you're going to fit into the cockpit of a jet airplane, you're probably not going to be a powerhouse basketball team. But access, I wanted access, and I said, I'm not going to charge you anything, but don't give me a long list of players and things to do. Don't worry, I'll get your marquee athlete for you. I'll do that, but I want to learn how to light these arenas. And so I started doing lighting arenas back in the late 80s and into the 90s, and it was everything that Sports Illustrated wanted. Now, it's not that popular now, but you're going to find that it's maybe not a bad thing to know how to do. So every weekend, I'm off to the Air Force Falcons, whatever was going on, and I would drag in equipment and light up, put the lights up on the catwalks, and I would make all these things, and I learned a lot. Monday morning, I'd bring them in a CD of pictures, and here we go, from the latest, catch, so to speak. And they went crazy over it. I was like the most popular guy that had ever taken pictures for them. And I had carte blanche everywhere I wanted to go and anything I wanted to do, because they were thrilled with the results they were getting, and they weren't being charged for it. I know it sounds crazy, but I learned so much, and I took that to Sports Illustrated and to Newsweek and to ESPN and the Sport Magazine and everything. And I said, I can do this. Only Sports Illustrated had a crew that would come in and light things. I was doing it myself. It catapulted my career. Remote cameras. If you're a sports photographer, you got to start hooking things up. using Pocket Wizards. I use the older Pocket Wizard Multimax transceivers. I still think they're one of the best products out there. They let you do a lot, but Pocket Wizard's upgrading and making new stuff all the time. Get whatever's popular there at Samy, whatever the top of the line is there, go for it. And you become a much more valuable photographer because now I have a camera up above and then I'm going to shoot down below. And I can get pictures from two different positions. This was like a high school state championship. I wasn't hired to do it, but it was at the Air Force Academy. So I hooked up the camera, hooked up a couple of strobes, and you see the shadows. I created the shadows on purpose because I thought it would look really cool from up above. I'm down below, but the Pocket Wizard triggers the camera, which then triggers the strobes up in the catwalk system. And so I'm taking them down below and I'm taking flash shots down here, and then I'm getting it from up above every time they would run across. This is the start of the 3,000 meter. I thought it just made a cool picture. It was fun. It's fun to do. This was a real stretch. I did a lot of stuff and I thought, you know what? I always like the color, the off color combination of having blue background, sort of a darker underexposed blue background, and then having nice, clean, beautiful, daylight, lighting up my athletes. I still use this formula today. And so I put strobes all over the catwalk system at Air Force Academy, and I put blue gels over the front, and I lit everything blue. And then I had two strobes actually lighting just the sort of, inside the 3-point area of the court with daylight. And the results kind of looked like this. I lit everything blue except my players when they would come down to this end. Here's all the data for you. It's taken a long time ago. It was on a Nikon D3X and ISO 800, and there all that stuff is. I used 5 Elinchrom Ranger RX units. Those are 1100 watt second strobes. I put blue gels on 4 of them. The one had the regular daylight. You see all the data there. And that was the result. And Air Force flipped out. This guy's like Spud Webb, if you remember him from Atlanta. And man, this guy is up there. And he had just a tremendous player. And the blue background, the blue ceiling, the catwalk thing, underexposed. And these guys are, if you look down by their feet, their shoes way in the background, it's underexposed and it's blue. That makes the athlete and my subject pop out forward right away. But it just made some great pictures. It was really a lot of fun, learned a lot. And I used that same technique at other colleges and universities that I would go shoot. And when you learn these things, then big things come along. This was for Sports Illustrated. I lit this arena. It was the World Championships in volleyball. And it ended up being lit with strobes. And it was probably, I'd say it's probably the most recognizable picture I've maybe ever made. This is Kevin Barnett, the captain of the U.S. team. They won that World Championships, taken with the remote camera. But it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't done those years of learning how to do that. There's nobody teaching you how to do these things. Just had to figure stuff out. But if you get access, get a laboratory, right? That's going to give you the access. Then you can start practicing and learning things. Totally valuable. And when the chips really come down, then an athlete comes along that everyone wants pictures of. This was actually a practice session with Michael Phelps before the 2004 Summer Games in Athens, Greece. He was kind of a young guy then. And he looked young. And the hard part was finding goggles that weren't the mirrored kind of goggles. And he says, he said, I think one of the other people's got some. Let me borrow some from one of the lifeguards. So we had these, so I could see his eyes. We didn't want to see the mirrored. We took them with the mirrors on, and I said, you know what, I think Sports Illustrated and U.S. Swimming is going to want to see your eyes on this, So anyway, paid off because there was some work. I knew my subject, I knew my sport, and I knew how to use my equipment, camera, lens to use, lighting to use, all that sort of stuff. And I knew all the lifeguards. This is at the U.S. Olympic Training Center. Walk in, guys, this is what we're going to do here. Can I do this? Absolutely. Absolutely. High speed sync, that's the brave frontier. This allows us to go outside, Typically, flash is about 2,000 a second. And speed lights, if you have speed lights, Nikon speed lights, right? I use the SB5000s. I like them because they're wireless, radio control, which is nice. But it allows me to do a flash shutter sync speed of like 1/2000th of a second, which is just, I can freeze the action and I can light it and I can do it outdoors. And I'll give you this bit of advice. If you want a picture to look interesting, only light part of it. That's the neat thing about photographing inside the arenas. I had to light up like the whole arena doing stuff. When you go outside, the ambient light that's already there is going to do most of the work for you. You just need to light up the athlete when they come flying by you or something. Track and field, that's an easy one, right? Starting blocks. Guys, it's coming out of the starting blocks. You wait till, well, Dave, don't I need, huge lights? I'm outside, I'm competing against the sun, I got to haul all this stuff around. I can't afford all that stuff. Well, all you need is a couple of speed lights, because if you wait till twilight, the sun's going down. There's about a 30-minute window there, a nice 30, 40-minute window. This is done with speed lights. And this is just sort of the test shot. I wanted y'all to see what the silhouette looks like. Sun's going down, it's just about to dip below the horizon, right? And then all I do is illuminate him with a couple of speed lights. This actually could have been done. I used 4 speed lights on this, but each speed light was at a quarter power, which essentially means I could have used 1 speed light at full power. So
Dave, I'm going to guess these are, I'm going to guess these are practice sessions or whatnot, because I can't imagine during races or competition, they'd let you light them up with speed lights or other
That's
things
a great
like
question.
that.
A lot of sports will actually let you use some lighting.
Okay.
They will. You just need to find out which ones can, which ones can't. I've actually done speed lights at a lot of track and field events.
It doesn't distract the athlete or cause issues for them?
I'm so glad you asked that question, Pete. The answer is no, it doesn't distract them. Okay. The flash from a speed light or a Pro Photo or Elinchrom or these kinds of things, the flash duration is very fast. It's like 1/1000th of a second, 1/1500th of a second, 1/2000th of a second. That flash is so instantaneous that it doesn't affect the iris of the human eye. That's what allows you to use flash in an arena. But you have to have flash systems that do that. The nice thing is the speed lights do that, and so do most of the other products that are out there. If you're farther away, you need something bigger. But at twilight, the speed lights are only out in front of him by about maybe 10 feet. And like I said, I could have used 1 speed light. I was shooting earlier when the sun was up, so I wanted 4 of them at full power. But as the sun went down, my lights become more efficient all the time. As it gets darker, the ambient gets darker and darker, my flash will do more work. So don't tell me you can't do it. 1 speed light will do this. Just wait till twilight. This is also a setup. This is the nice thing about this. Instead of the event, this is actually a setup. And in fact, this was a class for Kelby 1 that I taught. But when you start using light, athletes will do a lot more for you. It's like a feature shoot. And this is what leads you into more magazine work and newspaper work and advertising work, because now you're illuminating the subject and it's getting much higher quality, and you're starting to shape the athlete with off-camera flash. The camera is here looking straight at the athlete. The flash or the speed lights or whatever flash systems you're using is off to the right, almost 90 degrees, and then hits him from the front, illuminates him from the front. That's what makes his bicep look that way, because it's off-camera light. That's what makes that bicep have dimensionality and texture. There's texture. Look at the vein on the back arm back there. If I had the flash right next to the camera, it would flatten everything out. But because it's off-camera light, this would actually be an entire class that we could do. Come back and do something for Samys again, where we talk about just high-speed sync off-camera flash or something. That would be a great class to have, because it's a topic all in itself. I better keep going here. It's a triangle. Camera, subject, off-camera flash. There's the triangle. Get your flash away. Here's what it looks like. Camera, subject, Off-camera speed lights. This is actually at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I needed 4 speed lights. 4 speed lights equals, at full power, equals the same power, the same illuminating quality or potential, I guess, as a ProPhoto B1, which is 500 watt seconds. 4 speed lights equal 1 B1. Just trying to say, right? I've used speed lights and still use them. I do use ProPhoto if I'm in the middle of the day and the light and my subject has to be a long distance away. Typically, though, I'll use speed lights, not because I'm a Nikon ambassador and not because they gave them to me, because they didn't. I had to buy them, believe it or not. But it's because they're lighter, smaller, easier to maneuver around. And what happens when you start using light and you're not at an event, then you're very close to your athletes and you start using shorter, wider lenses and you're not that far away. So you want people, your assistant over here, which is just a buddy of mine, he's able to move the lights and follow the athlete along and swing them real easily because they don't weigh that much. So I keep using the speed lights probably 90% of the time. That's the resulting picture. It's fun to do. You're inside the boundaries of sport now. These guys are passing by only a few feet away. This is a job for Kawasaki. You want to do advertising stuff that pays a lot of money? You want to light it up. You want to use light. And if you're not thinking of that in sport, I'm just going to be a purist. Go to the event, and just capture the ambient lights, No, you want to use light. Believe me, that puts you in a whole nother perch, a whole nother position in the pyramid of progress, so to speak, in this industry. This is with a mirrorless Z7 I at the time. I use the Z7 II all the time now. I have 2 of them. That's what I've been using. This is full frame, 24 millimeters, and he's only passing by. The front wheel is probably about maybe 18 inches in front of me. Boom. Very exciting stuff. Very exciting stuff. This is in the middle of the day again, but I can make it look like it's a lot later in the afternoon, right? This is wake surfing, or scurfing, some people used to call it when it first came out. This is in the middle of the day. Look at the sunshine, how bright it is on Julio, my assistant. But I underexposed the picture. Look at how dark it is over when the real exposure is actually made. That's because I underexposed the picture on purpose to make it darker, to look more like it is twilight. But because I did that, and the boat is farther away than just a few feet, now I have, I've got to have more power, and that's when I start using I use the ProPhoto B1s, and I use it with the telezoom reflectors. Talking a lot of money bundled up there, but this is how a commercial shoot is usually done. How far away is that softbox with my 4 speed lights in there at about 10 o'clock in the morning on the half pipe? And I'm also going to add, I am not looking through the camera. I just let the AF system, and I love using AF, and the mirrorless AF systems now are just so great. And I tend to use the group area, or the kind of the cluster, so to speak, that gives not a single point, but has a little cluster of points. The group area tends to be great. And I just held the camera up and just let back button autofocus, boom, just locked right in on my athlete, flash, add a little bit of light, and the result looks like this. Underexpose the scene on purpose. Raise your hand if you've ever made an underexposed picture. Okay, everybody qualifies. Everybody can make a bad picture underexposed. Then just re-illuminate the subject with your speed lights or whatever lighting system you're using. The reason you're going to learn to do that is because everyone out there can take this picture in the middle of the day. Get a 200 to 400 millimeter lens, 200 to 500 millimeter lens, something like that. Get your Z7 II, get on there, track him in, 10 frames a second, flat, there he is. Everyone can take this. You have to understand, why would they hire you? Everyone's equal because everyone can kind of make a picture like this because all the program modes and everything are so good. But if you come out later in the day, getting into that twilight, that golden hour, and then into twilight, now the sun is setting behind him, just like the guy coming out of the starting blocks on the track. And now this is what the picture looks like. So now I need to re-illuminate him. And you're probably thinking, wow, I bet he used the Pro Photos for this one. No, put on a little longer lens. I'm about waist deep out in the water, and tilt the frame a little bit, flash, let him come through. And there's my 4 speed lights, actually in the softbox, so it contains the light a little bit. I've peeled off the front of the softbox, but the 4 speed lights that are in there, they're at full power at this point, and that's about it's about 75 feet away. That's a long throw, and the softbox actually controls the light, keeps it from spilling out over the water so much. And then the white water that he's throwing, remember all that white water he's throwing? That just like illuminated and bounced light all over the place when it struck him and made a nice shot. This particular picture was chosen for Nikon, by Nikon, to celebrate their 100th year anniversary 2 years ago. It was a great honor. It was really a lot of fun. This guy, he's a world champion. He lives down the block from me. I said, Troy, let's go out and make some pictures, man. I got this new mirrorless camera. Let's go for it. You know, bingo. That's my son-in-law holding the lights. I don't have an assistant. Yeah, I can't do this stuff. You've got an assistant. No. Andrew, come over and hold the lights. There's always somebody that wants to come when you're doing some sports. They want to see what's going on. We're in the home stretch here. Light painting is the last thing I'll talk about. Then we'll go to some more questions. And I think we do have some time. Yep. I was told I could go over time. Hope you guys don't mind out there in Samy's PhotoSchool land. I'm going to talk just briefly about light painting. It's not necessarily the kind of thing we do with sports. At least I didn't think so. Light painting is just, you guys read it real quick. I'm going to illuminate the subject of background, landscapes, whatever it is, a long exposure example, 30 seconds, using a mobile light source, a flashlight, right? Some kind of LED flashlight, or if it's a great big outdoor thing, it's a 2 to 5 million candle powered spotlight kind of thing. Anyway, go to Dave's gear page. It's got all the list of the gear there. And but sport, fishing, yes, it's sport. I can do small things, right? And Pete, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I come back again on that
May 5th
class there with Samys, and I'll actually do a demonstration on how to do light painting. It'll be a step-by-step teaching on how to do light painting of small, what I call tabletop type subjects. In this case, I used to do stuff for Orvis, the fishing gear company, and so I did my light painting, all these intricate. I can place the light very intricately right where I want it. I can use different colored LEDs. Really a lot of fun to do. And during COVID, I did a couple of little videos like this, and it went like viral. Everybody was like, "Wow, I can do it at home, and I don't have to wear a mask because I'm in my own house. It's great. And you don't need a big room, just a basement or your garage or something like that. Just make it dark so you can get a 30-second exposure." But you can see it can be useful for some light painting, just the NFL, foot details of things, details of sport can be done. Every sport has gear, and every piece of gear can be shown in detail, whether it's a tennis ball or the webbing of the tennis racket. Could be a hockey puck that's got the Olympic insignia on it, or the high school logo, and you do a light painting of that. I mean, all kinds of possibilities here. Very easy and inexpensive to do. You just need a tripod to put your camera on and a pen light, right?
And you can sign up on Samy's website right now for the May 5th event that Dave is doing. So if you guys want to go on their same website, you signed up for this event, go back there. The registration link is online.
Absolutely. Join me there. It's going to be fun. It's just kind of a fun one, right? The ball is actually sitting on a toilet paper tube. I know, just without the toilet paper, of course. Just the tube. It's got black gaffer's tape on it, so it's nice and black, so it kind of fades. If I don't illuminate it with the pen light, then it doesn't show up. So it looks like the ball is actually being struck by this is for Golf Digest. They wanted They were just looking for ideas to kind of kick off Masters Week. I thought this was kind of a cool one. They actually did not use it. They didn't use it, and I was pretty disappointed, and still am, you know, things go down tough. But anyway, basically it's a long exposure time. Had the ball there, little light on the ball for a second or two, little light on the tee, and you know, I got some artificial carpeting, you know, like artificial surface, you know, AstroTurf from Home Depot. Put it all there. It's down in the basement, right? Got it in there, lit it up, took the ball off. I had the golf club was actually in a vice grip on a table, and I pulled the club head back and let it go, and it just like, you know, started swinging. And I sort of light painted the front of it, and then let her swing. And then I got a red LED light, and I started like painting the back of the club with the LED light every time it swung through, and I would just swing with it and light it up. And this is how it turned out. I tried some with rubber cement, and you set the rubber cement on fire, and that leaves a flame trail. I used to do that a lot in the 80s and stuff with baseballs and hockey pucks and things like that. But this was actually a new club, and I thought maybe I should try it with the club. And I asked them if I could, and they said no, they haven't made very many of those clubs yet. This is, you know, it was like a new Big Bertha for Callaway or something. Anyway, so I came up with a different idea: light painting. Why not? But I have used it in some sports. Ice climbing was one of them. This is how everybody can shoot light ice climbing. You got the ice climb, right? Get your crampons on, get roped in, and take some pictures. Everybody can do this, right? This is during the middle of the day. And but I came back at night and got on the other side. I have the camera on here, fired it with a pocket wizard. So the shutter was open, I think, for about, I think it was 13 to 15 seconds or something like that. And then I just added light from above for 13 seconds of light. And basically that's sort of what it looks like. I used in those days I was using a Brinkmann, a 2 million candle powered rechargeable spotlight. I recommend 3-inch spike crampons. Now, those will really hold you into the old ice wall pretty good. And it's taken a long time ago, but it's amazing. This thing has been republished over and over and over again. It's been used for advertisements, calendars, all kinds of stuff. Hired the athlete, had 2 athletes working, and they were thrilled to climb at night because they felt it was more dangerous than anything they'd ever done. So they were really up for it. That's how you get, light convinces your athletes to come out, because they know, man, if he's doing lighting, it's going to look awesome. It's going to look epic. Not just the old run of a mill. Not the old something everybody does. I've seen those before. You get out there and make something special, and people take notice, believe me. They start looking at you a different way. Light painting, it's not sport, but it can be used for other things. Again, the large 2 to 5 million candle things. Go out to Utah and light something up with the Milky Way over the top. This would be a fun workshop to do. Okay, here we go. Yeah. Let's go out there. Anyway, that's not sports. Experimenting with light does use some light painting, and it is what I'm doing now. This is what I'm really into now. It started with a project for Callaway, and putting LED lights on the shaft and the club head, swinging slow, and using a speed light with like 2 speed lights. One had a green gel on it, and I had a couple of green LEDs right down by his feet, right behind them, that illuminated the cyc wall in the studio. There's a big white cyc wall there. The other speed light created the shadow, but then I used a speed light that had no gel over the front, and to try and re-illuminate him, put a grid over the front of that so it didn't ricochet into the wall. And it was on my way, and I liked it, but LED lights kind of been done before, and I thought there's got to be something else we can do here. So I started experimenting with glow sticks, like the kind kids use at a party. It's got the little liquid in it, and you crack them and break them, and then they glow orange and yellows and blues, and they connect it around their neck or their wrist, a birthday party kind of thing. And this is not at a fancy studio. This is actually in my basement. It's a small studio down there, not very big, and this is me. I don't have an athlete. I can't learn this stuff. Yes, you can, because on your camera, on your D or your Z, whatever it is, just put a self timer, and then and then get out in front of the camera and then swing the back real slow, have the glow sticks on it, and make the streak, and the shutter opens for light painting, 30 seconds or something. And I just started experimenting. Then I've got flash speed lights over here, flash myself during the time. In fact, actually it was flash and then swing the bat around. And I realized if I hold my head still and swing the bat behind my head a little bit, I get a silhouette of myself like I'm looking for the home run, and I learned a lot. It was a lot of fun. But that led to all kinds of things. I started illuminating equipment, tennis rackets, right? Dark environment, so I can get a long exposure time, 20 seconds or so. And then wrap the edges of the racket, the base of the racket, with glow sticks. And the guy, pitch it in, flash, like he's going to do a backhand. And then the ball just sort of bounces into darkness, And then he's just swinging the racket kind of in slow motion. My daughter kind of called it sort of like Tai Chi tennis, so that it records the glow sticks, and we just make patterns. It's really a lot of fun. This was Olympic fencing. Believe it or not, it's the same young lady, but the second athlete didn't show up, but that doesn't stop me. It's like, open the shutter for like 20 seconds, flash, get around it. Now it's dark again, get around the other side, hold it up here, flash, right? Drop that one, pick up the purple, foil and swing it around a little bit, let it go. And then, over here, pick up the pink one and do that, and she did a great job. And when this picture came up, and this was actually at a Summit sports workshop, and the class freaked out. They freaked out all day long because we have an Olympian. I go, yeah, an Olympian's coming in, And the next thing you know, we're making all these pictures and stuff, portraits, all kinds of things. And I said, well, watch this. We're going to actually make it look like there's two athletes there. And I couldn't believe we pulled it off. Anyway, lots of things can be done in the dark. And I'm going to finish with this last picture, as I'm right back with gymnastics. I still do my first sport. I never have left it. I still shoot gymnastics along with a lot of other things. You all have been very patient. I think there's about 15 minutes left in a 90-minute period here. Am I right, Pete?
More or less, yep.
Pretty close, okay. The last thing, know your sport. Follow the action, fill the frame, capture the moment. Repetition is the key to intuitive anticipation. Find a second season, connect with a marquee athlete, find a laboratory. Light is the greatest influence. And most of all, have fun. Because being a sports photographer, being any kind of photographer, is great. But I think sports photographers, we have the most fun out of all of them. I'll tell you, it is a great, great craft, and it is a great, great occupation, a great career. I hope you've enjoyed this. Hope you've learned a little something, but I can answer questions for however long you